What's up everybody, this is Josh from the TCG blog. It has been a hot minute, but I wanted to take the time to show you one of my most interesting archetypes. It's not the best archetype. Solfachord have been honestly shit on for quite some time since they were announced, since their effects were announced in the OCG, but I love them. They are super consistent, super fun, very weird win condition, but I feel like the build that I have put together for Solfachord, it just works. It just works. If you guys have been watching any of our deck builds, you'll kind of know that this is a pure deck build. This is purely just Solfachord for the most part. In the extra deck, you're not going to see Appaloosa, Boral Sword, any of the weird, crazy stuff. You're not going to see hand traps galore. You're not going to see triple infinite permanent, triple ash blossom. You're going to be seeing the Solfachord archetype and how I feel you should run it if you're wanting to play casually competitive with it and trying to keep this archetype very pure. So before I go into this, I do want to say we do have another channel called The Low Block. If you guys are a fan of basketball, anything like that, please go show that some love. Go over to The Low Block, check out The Low Block podcast. That'll be immensely appreciated. We put a lot of hard work into that weekly podcast. But yeah, I guess that's it. Let's get stuck into the Solfachord archetype. So because it is pure, we are going to run triple Grand Solfachord Musechia. What I love about these archetypes, the pendulum archetype specifically, is when they give them their own archetype link monster. Because having a pendulum archetype and you don't have an in-archetype link monster with good arrows, these arrows are actually really good, it's really frustrating. It means you're forced to go out of archetype. And for those, I assume those of those watching this video and our other videos and Tyler and I that play this way, it's frustrating because it means we have to go out of archetype. So the fact that we get an in-archetype link monster is just super appreciated. And this one's not too bad. So it's just two Solfachord pendulum monsters. It basically has one effect where you just pop one from your hand into the face-up extra deck and then you swap it out with a different one to your hand. Really good if you just need to get a certain card from your extra deck that's face up already. The other one is if you do pendulum summon a Solfachord monster, you can add one from your deck to hand with the same level as that scale. So a little bit of a search, a little bit of getting the right card from your extra deck to your hand. So not bad. And then also the two arrows there to your side of the field, very good. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to run Solfachord, just may as well run a playset of Grand Solfachord. So, first monster in the main deck, playset of Grand Solfachord, Soul Solfachord Gracia. I'm just going to call it Solfachord because it's just a lot easier that way. Solfachord Gracia is phenomenal. I wish she was level 4, but of course they couldn't make it that easy. They had to make her level 5. She is your spell/trap searcher of the deck. She is very good at it, very easy to get out. That is basically all you're going to be using her for. When she's summoned, whether it's normal or special summon, you're going to be special summoning her with the pendulum most of the time. Basically just search the appropriate Solfachord spell or trap that you require, and there's actually quite a few in the archetype, which I really like. So that's the first playset of monsters in the main deck. The other one is another searcher, Solfachord Cutie. Cutie is the monster searcher. So the reason why this is obviously important, being able to search a particular monster within your archetype from your deck to your hand, immensely powerful. And the fact that this works if you just normal summon, it's only level 1, so you can use it as a normal summon, search the appropriate monster, whether you need to set up scales or you're getting ready to pendulum summon. This is the card that you always want to see, so obviously this is going to be a playset of. The next one in the archetype, which I'm a big fan of, don't know why it got the ultra rare printing, but Solfachord Fancier. Fancier is just really neat, kind of works as just normal summon this out or summon it however you need. Send a Solfachord monster from your deck face up to your extra deck so it can kind of help get the extra deck set up however you need. That is pretty much all you're going to be using this for, and then you can use it as link fodder, whatever you need. We can help us get out one of our boss monsters in the main deck actually, which is quite handy, but it's pretty much just there to set up the face up extra deck, which is always really good. off a summon if we need to get it out. So playset off just for consistency wise because we do want to set up the face-up extra deck. Next one, for the very simple effect, playset of Solfachord Dreamium. The fact that if you control a Solfachord monster, special summon this card from your hand. So it allows us a very easy way to go into Grand Solfachord Musecchia, which, you know, the easier we can go into this, the sooner we can start, you know, using the plays that we've set up with Fancier and getting them to the hand with Musecchia. Or we can, you know, get ready to pendulum summon with the link arrows, but also get some searches off of that. So Dreamium just makes it a little easier to get out Musecchia, in all honesty. That's all she's there for, helps with consistency. Next one is going to be one of Solfachord Angelia. Angelia is not the best, which is why I run her at 1, but she does come up in certain situations where I kind of just really need to get to a certain card in my deck. So Angelia's effect is tribute 1 Solfachord card, special summon 1 Solfachord monster from your main deck with a scale that is too high or too lower than the one tributed. So if you were to tribute Angelia, you would be able to summon a scale 5 from the deck or a scale 1 from the deck. So that can definitely come up. There are definitely some, you know, if you definitely need, you know, Fancier, for example, to set up the face-up extra deck, you can definitely do that. And you can definitely go into one of the others. You know, there's just helps a little bit with consistency. That's all that she's there for, but I definitely don't advise her running more than 1. I found she just bricks too often because her scale isn't great at 3. You run 2 Solfachord Coulia. Coulia is really good because she potentially has an effect negate for 2 cards on the field. Now, anything that can negate the effects of 2 cards on the field is immensely powerful. She also has the effect where, and you're going to have to read this because these are actually quite complex. So I encourage you, if you're new to Solfachord, get up a wiki or something and have these cards along with these deck boards because they can be a little bit complex if you're new to the game because there is a little bit of math involved. But basically her other effect, if your opponent activates a monster effect with an attack equal to or less than the lowest scale in your pendulum zone, then destroy that monster, which is extremely good. It doesn't negate, but it already has, you know, it's not a quick effect negate, it's not a trigger negate or a response negate, but it is a negate nonetheless. So she can potentially get 2 of those and a disruption, which is really good. So she's good. The fact that she can also tribute to Solfachord monsters to special summon herself out from the hand. And she's quite beefy at 2700. So not a bad card. I don't advise running her at 3, but you can if you want. Her scale is good at 1. But I will show you shortly why the scales just honestly don't matter too much. Last Solfachord monster in the main deck is Solfachord Beautia. My opinion, this is the true boss monster of the deck. This is how you're going to get those true disruptions. So she has the quick effect where target 1 card your opponent controls on the field and banish it if it leaves the field. That's honestly enough to stop certain decks at some point. You know, if you understand your opponent's matchup very, very well, you know the choke point. So if you can banish the appropriate card to really stop their plays or limit their plays, Solfachord Beautia is the one to do it. So highly encourage you to play this. You can run it at 3, but I generally don't advise doing so because it's searchable. So many of these cards in this main deck are searchable, so I think a 2 of is absolutely fine. Next we run 1 phage Goliath. You can definitely run more than 1 phage Goliath. But the fact that it kind of stops everyone from special summoning, you know, is insane. It's a floodgate. The fact that we can actually get this out, I feel like any pendulum deck that is able to get this out should get this out. I just don't run it at more than 1 because we don't want to brick in this deck. We want to be consistent, so I run 1 phage Goliath. Last monsters in the main deck is Protecting Spirit Lower Geth. Lower Geth is insane. So she came out kind of when I was building and finalizing this deck. So all of our Solfachord monsters are fairy. Actually, all the monsters we have in this deck are fairy besides Goliath. All Lower Geth does, if we activate a fairy effect, we can special summon her from the hand. And then once per turn, we can switch one of our monsters to defense position. She can banish one card on the field. Extremely powerful. Non-destruction removal is always going to be powerful. The fact that she special summons herself out with practically nothing, because all of our Solfachord monsters are going to be getting their effects. That's why we're running them in the deck in the first place. So she's always live. We don't want to brick, so we don't run her at 3. But we do want to see her on the hand more often than not for that banish. So we run her at 2. So definitely good pick up. Very, very cheap. I'm a big fan of her because she does just help kind of get rid of a problem card if we need it. For these spells in the deck, we're going to be running a playset of Solfachord Elegance. I freaking love this card. This card is insane. This is the consistency king of the deck. I feel like every pendulum archetype should have a Solfachord Elegance-esque kind of card. Basically, what you're going to be using this for is, most of the time, get it first turn in your hand, use the second effect where place one Solfachord monster from your hand to your face-up extra deck, set 2 scales from your deck. This card single-handedly allows you to set up the scales that you need, and that is immensely strong, because one of the things I just haven't touched on, and I wanted to keep for this point, if you get the right scales set up from your main deck, from your pendulum monsters, your opponent cannot activate effects in response to your pendulum summons of Solfachord monsters, but they can't negate them. And that is extremely powerful. And you've seen our deck builds where Solemn Strike, Solemn Warning, Solemn anything is extremely powerful. If you can stop your opponent from getting out a problem monster to begin with, and Solemn's generally the answer, extremely good. Even the fact that your opponent can't activate cards or effects in response to pendulum summons of your Solfachord monsters, being able, this card, to get out your scales to prevent your opponent from stopping your pendulum summons is insane. So that is why I run this as a playset. I'd run this at 10 if I could. This card is so damn good in this deck. It's the backbone. It's what makes this consistent. The fact that it sets up the scales makes it an absolute 3-of. It does have 2 other effects. I'm not even going to bother reading them. They just kind of help shuffle things around. You can get some draw power with it. But the main thing you're going to be using this for is to set up the scales, because that is immensely powerful. Any kind of consistency like that is insane. Next, we run Solfachord Harmonia, a playset with 1 terraforming. I absolutely want this card in my hand. That's why I run the terraforming. I'm very happy with this field spell. Tyler and I have always said, if you can get a field spell with 3 effects, it's generally going to be a damn good field spell. The great thing about Harmonia is the effect where you can increase your pendulum scale in your pendulum zone by its level. So what makes that great is, obviously you want the lowest scale in the left zone. So obviously Coolia is going to be your best bet. Scale 1 is always going to be the best card to have in your left zone. If you can get scale 0, get scale 0. There are options, not running it in this deck, as you can see. But the fact Harmonia can make us increase one by its level. If I open 2 coolias and desperately need to set up a board, and I've only got kind of these 2 in the hand that I want to use as scales, I can pop them in the left and right, activate Harmonia. This all of a sudden becomes scale 9. So everything in this deck is now live, and it kind of works with everything. If I open with Angelia, pop this in the right scale, Harmonia activate target Angelia, then I'll make it scale 9. So obviously you want the lowest in here in the left zone, but in the right zone you can literally have any Solfachord monster in the right scale. As long as you've got Harmonia, it will be rank 9, which is needed because Coulia is level 8, so you'll need a 9 scale to get her out. So Harmonia, just with the fact that it's so easy to just make the correct scales and pendulum summon with the correct scales, is just insane. The other effect is just once per turn, add 1 face-up Solfachord pendulum monster from your face-up extra deck to your hand. That's insane. It helps with consistency. Fancier is the card that we want to set up with that. That can get the right card from your main deck to your extra deck. Harmonia will then get it from your extra deck to your hand. So what it becomes is Fancier is kind of just a free search in a way. And then the other thing that Solfachord Harmonia does, where is if you control Solfachord pendulum monsters with odd or even scales of 3 different numbers, so 3 even, 3 odd, destroy 1 card on the field. So it has scale manipulation. It has basically set up from the face-up extra deck to your hand, and it has a destruction effect, which is very easy to get off almost every turn with this build. So definitely want this in the hand, definitely want to run the terraforming to get it as often as possible, and that is why Cutie and Gracia are so damn important, because if we don't open with the Cutie, or we only open the Cutie, we want to go and get the dreamium so we can get our spell and traps, we can get elegance, we can get harmonia, we can get the right spell and traps in this deck. And this isn't even all the spell and traps that we want in our hand. We do want pendulum treasure, basically just what fancier does, send 1 monster from your deck to face up extra deck. Helps with Solfachord Harmonia, just recycle it back to the hand, so mini kind of search, if you can call it that. Playset of Ignite Reload, big fan when draw power is so often hard to come by. Just shuffle pendulum monsters into your deck, draw that same number of cards, but +1. So you're always going to get an extra card in the hand. I love it because it just helps with another shot at getting a better hand. Never going to be a bad thing. I run 2 Twin Twisters just to get rid of, often you're not going to get Solemn, because if you got the scales up, then it's not going to be a problem, but often there can be a problem card, if they're running something that just doesn't allow you to play the way you want to play. Something that can be detrimental is a Macrocosmos, because their pendulum monsters are generally sent to the graveyard first. That means they're banished, they don't go to the face-up extra deck, so Twin Twisters, never a bad thing. Cut it down to 1, you can cut it down altogether. You can pop, some hand traps in here, a couple ashes if you need. Twin Twisters is probably not the best thing, but I love it in our meta that we play with Tyler and I. Twin Twisters does come up. 1 Raigeki, because we don't have the most amount of pops. Harmonia gives us a pop, but beyond that, we don't really get too many. We do have another pop, and I'll touch on that in a second. 1 for 1. Because the card that we want to summon with the 1 for 1 is our Solfachord Cutie. Cutie, upon its summon, like I've said before, will just get us that search that we need of the monster. That's all that is, but the other form of pop that we have is Musica. This is the only traps we're running in the deck. Musica will basically just allow us to pop a card on the field. That's basically all we're going to use it for. It's just an additional form of disruption. It's searchable. Any kind of searchable disruption is really, really good. And that is basically the deck. The deck is hyper consistent. The fact we've got harmonia, the fact we've got elegance, the fact we've just got so much search power, so many cards which we can just throw into our hand, into the face-up extra deck, we can summon from the deck. It just allows us to be super consistent in our goal. And the fact that, Beauty gives us a, banish if their card leaves the field, that's pivotal. Coolia gives us a couple negates when we summon her. That's really pivotal. And the fact we can run things like a phage Goliath to stop special summoning, really pivotal. And we've got disruptions. We've got some ways to destroy cards on the field, and we've got non-targeting removal. Not non-targeting, non-destruction removal with lower geth. It's an extremely fun deck. You're not going to win locals with it. You're not going to win any crazy YCS tournaments with it, but you're going to have fun. Out of the Ancient Guardian set, this was shit on the most. People were somewhat looking forward to Ogdoadic, somewhat looking forward to Earth's Arctic. No one was looking forward to Solfachord. We built all 3 of them. I recently literally just sold Ogdoadic after trying to make them playable. We tried playing Earth's Arctic. We weren't a fan of it. Coulia and Coolia and the frickin' gang. This Solfachord's deck is the one that lasted and still sees success in our meta. You've seen the decks that we run on the meta, and you're going to see more. And this deck has done very well against it because of how consistent it is. So that is the deck build. If you've got any further cards or comments that you'd like to see us add to it or change, or you don't want something or you'd like to request something more, definitely leave it in the comments below. We're always active in the comments. All I'll say is please do go over to the Low Block podcast. Please check that out if you want to hear us talk about something else that we do love, which is NBA basketball. Throw a comment in, say that you came from the TCG block, and we'll shout you out. We love the support from all of you guys. Yeah, I hope you guys look forward to the next deck build, which will be a Roma deck build by Tyler. Thank you so much, guys.